Thank you, Jerry. And I just might pass a comment on that last presentation, that in fact our two projects that I'm going to talk about today, I sort of applied for the ground and in fact acquired some of the ground after using the geospatial database in WA. So it really works, and this is a result of it. I will have a couple of forward-looking statements here, so there is a disclaimer. But who knew that the world was going to run out of sand? You would have thought there is more than enough sand. You go down the beach, unfortunately that's not any good. Can't make concrete, can't make glass out of it. You go out in the middle of the desert, including the Sahara Desert, no good. It's full of iron. Can't make glass out of it, can't make concrete out of it. So in fact, the resources that are available, particularly for construction and glass making, are steadily dwindling. And the supply is getting so tight now. Indonesia's banned exports of silica sand, Cambodia's banned it. Vietnam has banned exports and in fact has turned from a net exporter to a net importer. China has made silica sand a strategic mineral. It's up there with uranium and rare earths. Why? Why would you think they'd do that? Because the government now controls all handling of silica sands. In the 3 years to 2017, China poured as much concrete as the US did last century. Now that makes a dent in sand. They're using over 1 billion tonnes a year of sand for concrete. So it is making a steady dent into the known resources of sand. Now there are some exceptionally large resources around the place. Cape Flattery, 200 k's north of Cairns, been going 50 years, got a resource of about 1 billion tonnes and a reserve, I think, of about 200 million tonnes, and they export a bit over 2 million tonnes a year. They're good for another 100 years. But it's owned by Mitsubishi and it goes to Mitsubishi. So we're looking to find markets other than the markets that Mitsubishi are using. The use is around you all the time, not just in construction sand, but glass making. The foundry industry is a huge industry. Korea uses over 100 million tonnes a year. India is the fastest growing foundry industry in the world. Audi, VW are now casting all their blocks. Manifolds, heads are all getting cast in India. BMW are moving to India. Frac sand is an industry in the US, not so much here, but in the US they use over 100 million tonnes a year. And the great thing about that, it doesn't come back. They pump it down a hole, it's gone forever. Elsewhere it's used not so much in great volumes, but also pretty good margins. So our real priority, we're looking at construction sand, probably not so much now because we've found that we can take that and process it into good glass making sand, but we're also looking at foundry sand and frac sand into the US. There's a fairly obvious reason why we're looking at markets in Asia. That's where most of the action is. Glass making, there's 270 glass making factories in China. The largest glass maker in Asia is Asahi. Started out making beer bottles. They now make plate glass as well, and they're the largest in Asia. And they're 30% owned by Mitsubishi. North America, we're not really looking there at all. Surprisingly, Western Europe, one of the largest markets there is perfume bottles. Very high quality glass. But really, we're looking at Asia, and the Asian glass making industry is increasing at 5 to 6% per year. Now, between float glass and container glass, you're looking at more than 130 million tonnes a year. So, you're looking at 7 million tonnes increase each year. Cover glass, this is an interesting part of the industry. This is the glass that goes over the top of solar panels. Now, if you can imagine, it's got to be ultra clear. You don't want to diffract any of the sunlight or any of the energy going to your photovoltaic cells, but it's also got to be able to withstand hail. You don't hear about solar farms getting wiped out by hail. They get hit by hail pretty regularly, but they don't get wiped out. It's very special sand, high quality. We can produce it. So really, I started out a couple of years ago to identify some project areas, and so went through the geospatial database, and we're in the process of developing them and maybe look at some more a bit later. The first part of the criteria, there was 3 parts to the criteria when I'm searching for this. Number one, it had to be in the right geology. So this is the sand in the middle of this image, that it's eroded from the hinterland, which is granite, and it's got a little bit of laterite on top. It's not the dunes on the coast. The coastal dunes are predominantly lime, calcium carbonate from shell grit. So these are eroded from the escarpment when the ocean was much higher. The mineral sands guys are right at the foothills of the escarpment. That's where it was a very turbulent zone, so it sorted the minerals out. So the strand lines have developed there. And then when the water receded, the wind has blown this sand up into dunes. So number one, we're looking for the right geology. The other criteria was it had to be next to a railway line. Now it's fairly limited in WA. All the railway lines there carry predominantly wheat. And it also had to be on vacant Crown land. And in fact, that's the case. So our only stakeholders are the state government and native title. So two projects, Arrowsmith and Maluish. Arrowsmith is up near Eneabba. It's got a railway line running smack dab through the middle of it, and it ran from Eneabba to Geraldton. Very little use at the moment because Luca have just about conked out down in Eneabba. But railway line right out there. And we just put out a resource, and this resource is in fact based on auger drilling. You can't get cheaper exploration than this. We've got 190 million tonnes here, and it probably cost us 50 grand. Cheap exploration, easy done, and in fact, we did all this before the tenement was granted. So we just put out this announcement the other day. It's 193.6 million tonnes at 98%. 98% is not a great grade, but what we find is, strangely enough, and this is just a characteristic of this sand, is that this is a chart of different minerals at different grain size. So the finer grains are on the left with the coarser material on the right. But what we found is all the contaminant type minerals are in the clay. So if we just screen this to 200 micron up to 850 micron, we're immediately at 99.5% silica, which is the grade you need for glass. And in fact, we found that if we now do a bit more work called attritioning, we can actually cut out those other minerals there and we can get to 99.7 pretty easy. So this ends up being a good product. And we only lose about 5%. So, better than a 95% recovery. Of this resource, probably 90% will turn into reserve. It's right next to the railway line. It's that scrubby bush you see there. Railway line's going rusty at the moment. And got direct access to the Geraldton port. There's actually availability for about 2 million tonne a year. When Mount Gibson iron ore conks out, there'll be another 5 million tonne a year. It's way out in excess of the capacity we might need. Maluish is about 50 k's north of Perth. It's on the railway line again. It's just south of Gin. It's in vacant Crown land. It's bound by, it's got an exploration target of over 200 million tonnes, and I expect sort of 275. They're very high dunes. It's extremely high grade. This is 99.7% in the ground. So we're above glass-making quality already. We can process this and get to the point where we need to get ultra clear. And this is where the solar panel glass is potentially from. This is our sort of market. Our preliminary work has said that we can upgrade this to almost any quality we like, up to 99.95. Important, though, is that we can get iron down below 100 ppm. Cape Flattery can't get below 100. So we're actually in a class of our own here. Once again, exploration here, crazy cheap, and I think we've got a video here. We've done enough exploration there for inferred resources on all of the projects. There's one area in Maluish we've drilled out with air core and we will get an indicated resource. It'll probably be a bit over 100 million tonnes. All the exploration is above the water table. We've cut out any areas that we've already identified are contentious at all. If we want to get more of it to indicated and measured, we'd have to do a bit more drilling. We won't do that until we're a bit further down the track, but it's very low cost. Drilling is exceptionally fast. It takes more time to set up the rig than it does to drill the hole. Sand runs about 2 to 3% moisture, so when we're mining, there'll be no dust. All the in situ bulk densities have been completed, and we've already done 2 iterations of test work, and we're on the 3rd one now. And we'll have the results of that in the next couple of weeks. We'll have pretty well all the ingredients for a feasibility study, not scoping study, a feasibility study by the end of this year. Arrowsmith sort of looks like this, and this is only 5 years after a massive bushfire went through here. So when it comes to rehab, it won't be too difficult. This stuff does recover quite quickly. The only thing it didn't kill there was all the ticks, but you can't have everything. We've finished all that. The test work has also been able to provide to us enough samples to send out to potential customers. I've been shipping out about 3 lots of samples every week for the last 2 months. And we've heard back from a number of potential buyers, and we're in the process of negotiating offtake. It's a ridiculously simple process. It's all equipment that's straight out of the mineral sands industry. We're not trying to reinvent anything here. It's all readily available and quite cheap to put together. One of the issues normally with processing mineral sands is slimes. You've got to get it out of the sand and you've got to dispose of it, you've got to deal with it, and it sucks up water. We got less than 1%. So those sort of normal issues with mineral sands we don't have to deal with. There's currently about 365 million shares out there. There's a bunch of oppies. I think we're trading at about 16.5 today. 2 months ago we were 6 cents. We've got a 1.7 in the bank. We don't need to spend a lot of money at the moment. We're about to start all the approvals process, which is sort of time and effort based rather than cash. We're market capped, I think, about 47 million. You can see we were suspended there for 6 months. The Maluish project, we had a deal on that, but the ASX didn't like it, so we had to fight them for 3 months and then spent another 3 months renegotiating the deal and getting the ASX happy. But since then, it's been pretty encouraging. At this point, I would normally like to put up a comparative peer comparison. Unfortunately, we can't. There aren't any peers. And if you go and do some research, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to compare it. But there's, it's one of the only emerging silica sand producers. And really, the industry is only kicking on now because the prices have gone up in Asia to cover the shipping costs from Australia. So we can now compete in that market. 4 years ago, couldn't do it. But it's the project has fantastic economics. The logistics are great. Huge resources. Plants, we're talking $15 million, so it's not a lot to finance. And we're looking at a few other prospects. But it's an exciting time for the company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.